But I wanted to extend a welcome on behalf of Thrive to this Environment and Sustainability Thrive Action Group, and specifically for the Thrive Impact Group's findings and report. Very excited about that. My name is Petra Sultan. I am the Policy and Education advocate for Thrive, the Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. I know many of you are not regular Thrive members, so Thrive is a robust, trusted network of over 200 plus nonprofits, government, foundations, and community leaders with a shared commitment to strengthening the nonprofit sector, thereby improving the quality of life in San Mateo County. So in addition to environment and sustainability, we also work on census outreach, on voter outreach, and I'm just going to do a quick commercial here because it turns out that environmentalists are lousy at voting. So we would like all of you to vote. Everybody will get a ballot in the mail if you're already registered. If you're not already registered, please do register. smcvote.org, very easy. And if you haven't registered and want to go to a vote center, they'll be open 29 days before the election. And if you are not feeling comfortable with the Postal Service right now, there will be 37 drop boxes throughout the county where you can put your ballot, and 45 different vote centers where you can go and vote in person or drop off your ballot. If you want any more information, please feel free to reach out to me. Thrive is hosting an event that I hope you will all be interested in, specifically for nonprofit leadership. The county has been working on a COVID recovery plan, and they would like to present that to the nonprofits and give nonprofits an opportunity to give feedback before the plan is finalized. And that'll be on September 9th, and you can go to the Thrive website to sign up for it. It's a great opportunity to ask questions like, how is the environment considered in the long-term recovery plan? So I hope to see many of you there. In addition, I also want to invite you to our next tag next month, which is going to be part of our social impact series that we do in conjunction with the Social Impact Advisory Group. It's focused on business, but specifically on the business of sustainable food. So sustainable food for people, planet, and profits, how innovation is making the food business more environmentally friendly. We have a panel that includes a representative from Impossible Foods, one from Plenty X, which does vertical farming, and one from a farm that does aquaponics. So I think the conversation will be very interesting, and I hope to see you guys there as well. So now we're going to go ahead into today's program, which is a very exciting culmination of some really hard work that a lot of people who are on this call have done. And Doug Silverstein, who's the Environment and Sustainability lead for Thrive, has been working really hard to pull all of this together and has created an amazing report. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about it with all of you. And then we will have time for questions at the end. And we also have some great speakers that Doug will be telling us about. Doug, you're up.
Thank you, Petra. Can everyone hear me okay? And see me okay? Great, thanks. My name is Doug Silverstein. I'm the Environment and Sustainability lead at Thrive, and I've been in the nonprofit sector and environment in San Mateo County for 4 or 5 years. Don't often introduce myself, so I'll let you know I'm a San Francisco native and lived in Burlingame for 24 years, and as well as had a previous career in tech sales and marketing, but found my passion with Thrive and with the environment here in San Mateo County. This is an exciting meeting. We launched an effort in March of this year, and we're coming to the very end of phase 1 and transitioning to phase 2. I want to share with you all what we accomplished so far and what we see as a potential going forward. I'm going to jump right in and tell you what we found so far. Well, so single-use plastics is absolutely a crisis situation, and there are plenty of articles and movies and documentaries around this that all lead us to the same conclusion, that the production of plastic is just mushrooming or growing fast right now. It's supposed to increase 4 times in the next 20 or 30 years. But the big problem's there. It's fossil fuel based. 99% of the ingredients of plastics are fossil fuel. Then they travel, typically fracked, travel through pipeline to a production plant that emits a lot of greenhouse gases. And then they get to us where we are just forced, there's plastic forced upon us. You can't walk down a supermarket aisle without a preponderance of different types of plastics, or go to a store, get anything in the mail. It's forced upon us, really, quite honestly. The very sad notion that we found is that plastics is basically, the recycling is basically broken. 2% of plastics is effectively recycled, and only 10% total about is recycled of all the plastics that we consume and that have been consumed in the last 20 years. And then we have this horrible, because the recycling is not working, we have this horrible downstream problem, waste management. And we here in San Mateo County, as you'll see in an upcoming slide, landfill almost all of our single-use plastics. We recycle some. But outside of San Mateo County, often plastics are being incinerated with a lot of toxins going into the air, or they're going into our oceans, and we know there's a problem there. And really maybe the saddest thing of all of this is that we're right here in the middle. There's a big health problem with the fracking and the production, the food that touches our plastic as before it enters our body. If there is recycling, it's dirty, and it's just a horribly pollutive environment in general. So, but as I said, you can read a lot about it, and you can find out that there are what the problems are and what the solutions are. But as we did our research, we found that there are a lot of isolated approaches to attacking this problem. We are taking a new approach, which is collective impact. We're shifting from isolated impact to collective impact. And we found that this is a stormwater problem. So there's a government group, cities and county, working on water flowing to the bay, preventing plastics from getting there. It's a waste management crisis. Our haulers, our recyclers, our landfill operators are overwhelmed with plastic. Their businesses are suffering as a result. It's a beach and marine cleanup. We've got coastal communities and coastal nonprofits out on the beaches every weekend, and the plastic keeps showing up the following weekend. And then it's a youth a concern of interest to youth, in that they're very concerned about climate change, but they also see a lot of plastic on their campus, maybe uniquely more so than those of us walking around downtown areas. But these are all isolated approaches to attacking the problem. And what we did here, which was different, is we created a group that brought all these groups together. We called it Reduce and Rethink Single-Use Plastics in San Mateo County. We, as I said, are choosing to follow a collective impact philosophy, which follows these 5 rules of common agenda, finding organizations with a common agenda, measurable goal, creating measurable goals jointly, coordinating activities, maintaining constant communication, and having a central team do backbone support. I'm going to tell you more about that when we get to the end of the presentation, because that's what phase 2 is all about. But quickly, I want to share with you what we found in our research. Well, let me, before I do that, I just want to say, this has been an incredible effort over the last 3-4 months. We, starting with a few of the members who were speaking today, back in January, I started talking to people about this project. And within a month or so, we had 10. Within a couple of months, we had 20. But as we launched this project on April 8th, we had 30 people collaborating with us. A lot of you are on this call. It's been an amazing effort to see, to learn from everyone and hear everyone's different perspective and their approach to dealing with this crisis. We made sure that they're cross-sector, government, nonprofit, business, and youth, and cross-discipline, which in this case was waste management, stormwater runoff, beach and marine cleanup, as well as climate change. And our report, we, through the hard work of almost everyone you saw on that previous slide, we have a 95-page paper, which we're just absolutely last night finished version 2, and we're going to send it out to you guys next week. But here's a preview of what we learned. This is in San Mateo County. So this is the story of plastics in San Mateo County. We found statistics for 2018 that there are 57,367 tons of single-use plastic waste generated in San Mateo County. That was in 2018. It grows slightly every year. That's going to landfill, that's going to recycling, and unfortunately, 1% of it going into our oceans. That is the equivalent of 148 pounds per person per year, which is, you can look at it either as empty bottles or plastic bags, but every one of us is generating plastic waste of 6,790 empty bottles or 12,233 plastic bags. Of course, this is approximate or based on the estimates available to us. Unfortunately, we're sending a lot of it to landfill. So you can see we're sending 87% of our waste, plastic waste, single-use plastic waste to landfill, which is the equivalent of 37,000 Mini Coopers to our Ox Mountain landfill, which is where most of it goes. So let's look at recycling. Of the 57,000 tons, unfortunately, 75% of those are not recyclable. And the reason that is mainly because of the proliferation of types of plastics. So when you go down every aisle of the supermarket, you see plastics of different size, different shape, different color, different durability. And that proliferation went astray from a narrow group of plastics that used to be readily recyclable. Also in 2018, China decided that they didn't want to be the waste dump of plastics for the whole world and created new policies. The other unfortunate thing we found is that of the 25% that are recyclable, that only half in our county are being recycled. Most, so half of those going in the landfill, half of the recyclable plastics going in our landfill are not recycled, obviously. And then I should add that there's recycling is somewhat of a myth in that bottles are only able to be recycled a few times before they lose their effect as being a bottle and then go into carpets and other materials which are not recycled. So we call that downcycling. The third thing I want to share with you is the cost to our county of maintaining this 57,000 tons of single-use plastics every year. And that is, there's externalities, which are costs that aren't borne at the point of transaction. So when you and I buy plastic, we're not seeing these costs, but it's costing us a lot to send these to landfill, and it's costing us to clean up the litter from our cities and beaches. There's a huge amount going to the ocean, and we're not directly pushing it into the ocean, but in effect, by driving demand for plastics, we are responsible for plastics in the ocean. There's a huge amount of climate and health problems. And then there's a lost opportunity cost of the use of plastics. So there's the notion of moving to reusables away from single use. And if we were to do that and not use plastic bottles and not use plastic utensils, or somehow get rid of all of the consumer products that we buy that are wrapped in plastics, we would save almost $200 million. Restaurants would save $11 million in our county if they switched away from takeout plastics. Our schools would save money, our corporate cafes and hospitals, and there's a lot of savings that we're missing out on. So collectively, we're costing this plastic in our single-use plastics in our community is costing us $500 million every year. And it's interesting, the way we look at this is that we think we can, by bringing together this amount of information, we can talk to our public and our policymakers and show how change is profitable. So the good news is that there's lots of solutions out there, and they're isolated right now in terms of policy. Our county is driving policy, as is the state and the county. There's nonprofits focused on policy. There are incentive programs out there to drive consumers to convert away from plastics. There's open markets that are driving the use of plastics. There's a lot of public campaigns or education. So you could look and say, you know, what is the we could look and say, let's focus on policy solutions, or let's focus on food service and bottles and lids. We broke down plastic into 6 different types. And that's what we need to do, is figure out now what we want to focus on. But I should say, we have 4 speakers that are going to talk to us about their solutions. They're part of our community, and they're all attacking this problem in a unique way, some in the policy, some in markets, some in public education. And I'm honored to have worked with them over the past few months. And I want to introduce first Eun-Soo Lim. I'm going to do formal introductions because I want everyone to know what all of our participants are up to. So Eun-Soo Lim is a senior sustainability specialist at the County of San Mateo. She has over 12 years of experience in her field as an environmental nonprofit consultant, greenhouse gas auditor, and climate change advisor to governments. Now at the Office of Sustainability for 5 years, she's developed and implemented waste reduction programs, including the 4Rs grant that many of you know of, and the county's disposable food serviceware ordinance, which she'll be talking about now. Eun-Soo, you want to jump in?
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. Okay, thanks for inviting me to give to participate in this presentation as well as the group. Next slide, please. So quick summary of a County of San Mateo Office of Sustainability. Our objective is to promote sustainability in the county through the planning, development, and implementation of many different types of programs in the areas of climate change, energy and water, waste reduction, and livable communities. And there is a team of about 40 troopers in our office that help with this objective. Next slide, please. And to give you a little bit more background on how this disposable food service work came about, so it was officially adopted by our county's Board of Supervisors this past February. And it was an effort that started back in June 2017, and it started from collective interest raised by the members of our community, specifically around single-use plastics and straws in particular. And it was that video with the turtle with the straw being taken out. That was the instigator for this concern being raised. And so the Office of Sustainability, we started researching, took it to a higher level and expanded it beyond just plastics and looked at our other food serviceware, our disposable food serviceware. And so over a year and a half, we researched, we talked to and reached out to different local communities and local governments that had adopted or were planning on similar ordinances. We did a lot of public engagement, stakeholder outreach, reached out to food facilities, restaurant associations, chambers of commerce, et cetera, until finally we adopted it back this February. Next slide, please. And the 3 objectives of this ordinance is the first one, to reduce waste, of course, and it's specifically to eliminate the unnecessary distribution and use of disposable food serviceware that is not readily reusable or compostable, as well as to reduce waste at the source. And it's meaning preventing waste from being created in the first place. And examples of disposable food serviceware are pictured on the right pictures. And to The second objective is to help the county keep our waterways and our water bodies clean and safe. With millions of pounds of trash going into the bay from land-based sources every year, this ordinance will help to reduce that litter and keep our waterways clean and safe. And the third objective is, of course, to improve the health and safety of our community members by reducing the generation of microplastics, as well as limiting our exposure to harmful chemicals like fluorinated chemicals, which are found in many of these types of disposable food serviceware. Next slide, please. This ordinance will impact food facilities within unincorporated areas of San Mateo County, and that's pictured in the green areas on the map. And all the food facilities in the incorporated cities within the county will not be impacted. The county is currently working with interested cities and their staff around this effort, because ideally, it'll be valuable to have a policy and a program that's uniform and consistent across the entire county. And for those cities that do end up adopting the county's ordinance, the county will offer to lead the education and enforcement efforts within those jurisdictions. Next slide, please. And to go into snapshot, ordinance snapshot. So pretty much we are basically trying to get away from plastics. So plastics will not be allowed for the example items that you see on the slide. And that includes traditional plastics. So traditional plastics will not be allowed. And they're petroleum based, and that also includes polystyrene or number 6 plastics or styrofoam. And compostable plastics, or those plant-based, the quote unquote more environmentally friendly or the greener plastic options, also known as bioplastics and PLA, will also not be allowed. Next slide, please. So the acceptable alternatives to plastics are items that are made from natural fiber, and that includes items like paper, sugarcane, wheat stalk, wood, bamboo, hay, and etc. As you see in the picture on the slide. And for some of these larger items, they will need to be free of a toxic chemical called fluorinated chemicals, which cause different health ailments within our bodies. But to ensure, to help food facilities understand which items are free of these fluorinated chemicals, all they have to do is really look for that BPI certification logo or Biodegradable Products Institute logo on the item itself or on the packaging that the item comes in. Next slide, please. And final element of the ordinance is to really, source reduce. We're trying to regulate the distribution of accessories. So accessories will only be distributed when needed by the consumer, and specifically, 1, only when requested by the consumer, or 2, when the consumer accepts an offer by the server or the food operator, or have it made available at a self-service station or dispenser. Next slide, please. And in terms of what's next, the county is going to continue to work with our cities to support them, support them in exploring whether this ordinance is something that they'd like to adopt within their jurisdiction. And the operational enforcement date usually is 1 year after the effective date of the ordinance. So the earliest that the county's ordinance will kick in is March 2021 for unincorporated San Mateo County, although we are evaluating this start date because of COVID and its impacts on the restaurant and the food facility industry. So we'll have more updates on whether we'll be keeping that date or whether we'll be pushing that into a date further in the future. And next slide, and that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eun-Soo. I should add that Eun-Soo is one of a handful of government representatives on our project. We had someone from the city of Burlingame, city of Half Moon Bay, of course, County of San Mateo, as well as CCAG, a council member from Millbrae. We also had a number of youth, which was really exciting to work with high school students. I believe we had 5 or 6 high school students, of which Ava Peyton is one, and I want to introduce her. Ava Peyton is a senior at Menlo-Atherton High School, and she is the leader of the Surfrider Foundation Club there. Since freshman year, she's volunteered at Surfrider events and participated in beach cleanups, which matches her passion for swimming and surfing. This spring, she worked on the impact up to school section of this project, single-use plastics in San Mateo County. And later this year, she's excited to lead plastic reduction efforts at Menlo-Atherton High School. Ava, tell us about what you're up to.
Thanks, Doug. Hello, everybody. Like Doug mentioned, I'm the leader of our Surfrider Foundation Club at Menlo-Atherton. This is something I'm really excited about. Like Doug also mentioned, I'm passionate about going to the beach, surfing, swimming, and just making sure it's a safe place for everybody to enjoy. This first slide is a picture of the north side of Mavericks Beach, which is one of my favorite places. I've been going there my whole life, so I'm really excited to tell you guys about my club. Next slide. Okay, so one of our main draws for the students at Menlo-Atherton is beach cleanups. And the way we get people out there is by organizing carpools and working with the San Mateo County Surfrider chapter to make sure we're going to the right beach at the right time. And then we pick up the tools like bags and gloves to pick up the garbage, and we sort it afterwards so that all the students can tell what's coming off of the beach and where it goes afterwards. Our second initiative is fundraising, and the way we do that is by selling stickers and organizing t-shirts and selling those to our members. That's how we raise money for more tools like bags and gloves for the beach cleanups. And finally, tabling events. That refers to nonprofit events like the Fog Fest in Pacifica. That's one of our events, and we had one at Sports Basement where the Surfrider table is there, and we have volunteers, student volunteers from the club who stand and say, like, do you know about the Surfrider Foundation? This is what we do. And we just spread the word to anyone who's interested. That is a picture. Oh, sorry. Could you go back for just a second? Sure. That's a picture of some members of my swim team at the beach cleanup in Half Moon Bay that we organized last year. That was the first beach cleanup with my swim team, so it was great to expand our reach to not just the MA students, but the swimmers in Menlo Park. Okay. All right, how this helps. Number one, I put student engagement. It's great to get students just out of their homes on the weekends. Obviously, we do spend time doing homework and sports and things like that, but I think it's really important to also have some way to give back to your community. And especially now in this day and age, the environment is a crucial aspect of any community service. So it's great to have people out on the beach, like making friends and also learning about how we can reduce the waste that gets into the ocean. And that leads into the environmental awareness. The Surfrider Foundation Club is a great way for people to experience their first community service, but also be out there on the beach and notice how much trash actually gets sent into the ocean. Not just from beach cleanups, but we also sometimes volunteer with the water testing part of the Surfrider Foundation. It's called the Blue Water Task Force in our county, so students can volunteer to get water samples, and then afterwards we find out like which chemicals are in the water and which parts of the garbage contribute to that. Next slide. Finally, I'm going to share our 2021 goals with you guys. Even though it's kind of iffy at this point whether we'll be back in school and doing normal beach cleanups like we're used to, I still wrote out some goals just so we can have a plan for the Surfrider Foundation Club. I'm leading it with 2 other people from my school, so one of the main initiatives this year will be the socially distanced beach cleanups. Those actually, it's easier than you might think to keep it socially distanced during a beach cleanup because we sanitize the bags and buckets that people use to pick up trash, and then everyone kind of goes in their own direction once they're on the beach to pick up the garbage. And then something we started just last year is Save the Bay Day. A lot of students live on this side of the mountains, so it's pretty difficult if they don't drive or they can't find a carpool to get to the beach in Half Moon Bay, Pacifica. Sometimes we even go up to San Francisco, which is really a trek. So the Save the Bay organization does cleanups in the Palo Alto Baylands, which is a perfect chance for the students, especially who live like me in Menlo Park or somewhere in East Palo Alto, which is really close to the Baylands, to get out there, experience their first kind of cleanup, and then they're more interested for when we go a little farther away. Second, something we had to push back from this year is putting up some of the storm drain medallions, like you can see on the right. When people see these on the storm drains, I know we have some in my neighborhood, it's a good reminder that the only thing really going down there should be water. And the way we can kind of spread this impact is by going around the neighborhoods probably as soon as possible to put those up on the gutters so people can see them. The third bullet point says Intercambio and Surfrider Foundation Club. Intercambio is another club that I'm part of, and it's a language exchange for Spanish and English speakers. So we have a lot of native Spanish speakers at Menlo-Atherton, and I've noticed in the past years with the Surfrider Foundation Club, it's a lot of people who only speak English or that's their first language, and I don't see a lot of Spanish speakers out there. So my idea with the Surfrider Foundation Club, how we can broaden our reach, is by printing out some more brochures with the Spanish language ones. So right now I have this one here, it's called Ocean Friendly Restaurants. That's one of the programs that our members can volunteer to join, where you go around to restaurants in the community and have them, there's some requirements like no disposable utensils or only paper straws or something like that. So I think if we print some of those in Spanish, we'll be able to really be more inclusive for all the students at Menlo-Atherton. And finally, something we're just working on in this situation with quarantine is making sure people know what's going on with our club. So we always update our Instagram account, but we're also working with the Remind app to send individual messages to the people who've signed up from last year. And then starting next month, we're going to be pushing out a video to advertise to the whole student body, like what the Surfrider Foundation Club is, how you can join, and then how to stay updated. So that's a bit of a challenge, but we're definitely working on it. I really appreciate you guys learning about my club, and I'm glad that so many of you are worried about the environment.
Thank you, Ava. It's, like I said, it's been a pleasure to work with all the high school students, and we have high expectations. I know they have high expectations of us as adults, but to keep our planet clean. But I think working together with the youth, the government, adults from government, business, and nonprofit, working with the youth is an amazing connection to make. I want to also bring in the business part of the solution. So we've heard from government, we've heard from nonprofit and youth, and now there's a business component to this. As I said, the market can drive change. I want to introduce Laura Porter. She is a plastic-free and zero-waste enthusiast and the owner of San Mateo's first zero-waste store, Bird's Filling Station. Her career began in public accounting with Deloitte and Touche and other large Bay Area companies. But after 15 years as a CPA, she became tired of plastic-free lifestyle challenges and started Birds to make zero-waste living more accessible to everyone in San Mateo County. She's also an active member of the San Mateo Rotary Club and Citizens Climate Lobby. So Laura, thanks for joining us.
Great, thanks for having me, Doug. Can everybody hear and see?
I can hear you, and
All right.
I can see you.
Great. So as I was pulling this together, I realized that it was 2 years ago this month that I saw an expose in the San Francisco Chronicle about plastic pollution on our beaches, and I gave myself the challenge that week to do 1 week of grocery shopping with zero plastic, absolutely zero. I guess I could say that was the week that I became a zero waster. At the time, I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. And we ended up that week eating baguettes and some eggs and some fresh fruits and vegetables. It was healthy, but it wasn't particularly varied. You know, even the pasta box has that little plastic window, so I couldn't even do that. Cheese and meat were just completely out. So that was when I really started to notice the lack of plastic-free alternatives that are being offered in stores and how difficult it is really to avoid plastic even when you try. And I just gave a talk on why that is, and I could talk for 30 minutes or hours on the why of plastics, but I want to talk today about how we can change this. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about Bird's Filling Station in particular, but there are lots of companies starting to pop up that are looking at similar philosophies in different industries. So we've got, for example, Dispatch Goods is applying the same kind of philosophy to restaurants and food trucks and their containers, making them reusable. We've got Vessel dealing with coffee cups, and Wisdom School Supply is taking all the plastic out of school supplies. So the basic, next slide, please. The basic way that I look at this is from a consumer standpoint and then from a business standpoint. So from a consumer standpoint, there are three simple ways that three simple questions you can ask yourself anytime you go shopping that can start making an impact in single-use plastics right now. And the first is, do I need this? If the answer to that is yes, and you do, then you go to the next one. Can I find the product with no packaging or that comes plastic-free? Sometimes it really is just as simple as looking around and finding the alternatives. If you need something and you can't find it with reduced plastic, does the product come in bulk to reduce the overall packaging that's there? So these are ways that we can all do it, but even going through a store and asking this can be difficult. Next slide, please. Because really when we look at the business side, the supply side, there's a void of plastic-free alternatives that are out there. Everything comes wrapped in plastic, from personal care and cleaning products to food to any snack that you do. And it's really difficult for the consumer to do it. So there's a mismatch there between what businesses are willing to provide and what consumers are really starting to look for. In general, I think we've kind of become package blind, and we don't realize that we're actually buying the garbage that we're bringing into our homes, and then we have to pay to have hauled away. So combining these, the consumer outlook and then the business outlook, there's a hypothesis here in this experiment that is Bird's Filling Station and all these other companies that I talked about. And the hypothesis is that if consumers have access to plastic-free alternatives that make life just as convenient and just as easy as they are with the current plastic-laden model, consumers will want to make those choices and will start to move over to the plastic-free alternatives. The UK is way ahead of the US in this regard. Throughout the UK and Europe, you're starting to see these bulk refill stores pop up that, we specialize right now in personal care and cleaning products, but in addition to those, the European stores are taking it into bulk foods and into ways that consumers can just go and buy all of their essentials, all their consumables without any plastic. Even UK major grocery stores are starting to see success with these in-store experiments. Next slide, please. So how does this experiment even start to disrupt and rethink an entire distribution model? It's really about rethinking how we do things from start to finish. The first generation for Bird's Filling Station is an online shop. We were at farmers markets as well, but our presence at farmers markets is suspended, and the county health department in San Mateo has suspended self-serve bulk items. So we're kind of trying to be patient before we take that next step. So right now it looks like a milkman style delivery service here to make it easy for customers to go online, order, and then get items procured that way without the plastic. And if we support these stores as they pop up and we're starting to work out all the kinks with them, they can eventually grow to, next slide, please. They can eventually grow to something like this store. So this is actually a full service grocery store. It's called Roots. It's up in Boise, Idaho. And I have had the pleasure of getting to know the owner of this store. They offer everything in bulk. So personal care and cleaning products, but spices, dry goods, nuts, honeys, oils, syrups, that kind of stuff. And where it's not refill, they have them in plastic-free containers. So milk in glass jars, just like we have Strauss Family Creamery here. And even if you go to the deli, they will use either compostable or reusable containers. So when the pandemic cloud lifts, I think we all have a collective responsibility to rebuild the world that we want to see. And I think that business has a substantial role in that. Big oil companies right now are focusing their unburnable reserves into an increase in plastic production. And without a conscious effort on our part, I think both from the, from the nonprofit, from the education sectors, but even from business, we're going to be drowning in plastic if we don't start to do something about it. And we really need to be reducing instead of increasing that. So with that, I think it's probably time to turn it over to Alejandra to talk a little bit more about what they're doing up in Pacifica.
Thank you, Laura. I did buy some of the dishwashing inserts today and converted my family over to that, as well as some laundry pods now. So slowly and surely we're converting over. And I should add that it's not that hard also to carry around a napkin with you. I don't know if you can see this, a very small napkin and a very small fork and spoon. If you can do this and a water bottle, you're making a big difference if we could all do it. So I want to introduce Alejandra Warren, who is the founder of Plastic Free Pacifica. She's a strong advocate for sustainability and environmental conservation, and currently manages and assists on sustainability projects across the Bay Area, as well as works as a zero waste consultant for San Francisco Environment. Alejandra co-led efforts to pass Pacifica's 2008 single-use plastic ban and founded Plastic Free Pacifica in 2019, an initiative to educate the public on the importance of reducing plastics and switching to reusables. Thank you, Alejandra, for being with us, another of the great 30 that were involved in this project so far.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, everybody. The fact that you're here tonight gives us a lot of hope. We've been working for months on this, so seeing all of you here, it's really exciting. So the first slide, on October 2018, the city of Pacifica adopted the first single-use plastic ban in San Mateo County. The ordinance bans the use of single-use plastic and bioplastic straws, stirrers, and cutlery. In 2019, we founded Plastic Free Pacifica with the support of the Pacific Beach Coalition, with the goal to educate our community about the harmful impacts of plastics and the importance of reducing the use of single-use plastics. Next. Thanks to the Office of Sustainability and the 4Rs grant program, we received funding to reach out to restaurants and retail food vendors, not only to make sure that they're in compliance with the city ordinance, but also to make sure that they know about more sustainable options. If you see the pictures we have here, those are the kind of things that we encountered when walking in restaurants. They already received the letter from the city saying that all of these items are banned, and they still didn't understand what that meant exactly. So we stepped in to make sure that they knew exactly what kind of materials they were allowed to use. And next slide, please. We mainly advocate for reusable options whenever it's possible, but when that's not an option, we just make sure we talk to owners and to managers so they understand the difference between materials. There's a lot of confusion. A lot of people were showing us boxes of plastic, regular straws, telling us, look, it says recyclable. That's why we bought them, because they say recyclable. So we have to start this conversation. No, this is the reason why we are just asking for people to use paper instead of plastics, instead of bioplastics, instead of compostable. I don't know if you're familiar with the differences, but there are hundreds of differences between materials, and most of them are really toxic, equally toxic as regular plastic. Next, please. Thank you. Our main goal is to reach out to businesses to educate them about the ordinance, but we're also doing a lot of community outreach. So last July, we worked on a Plastic Free July campaign. We were asking San Mateo residents to share their plastic-free stories with us, to tell us what they do to reduce plastic. So in the picture on the left, you can see someone from Daly City showing us how buying bulk is helping them reduce their use of plastic. On the right, that's the beautiful daughter of our mayor, Deirdre Martin, and she's talking about how their daughters are using only reusable Ziploc, instead of Ziploc bags, reusable snack bags. So we received dozens of stories from across the county, people telling us what they're doing to reduce their plastic footprint. Next. So here, basically what we're doing is we are recognizing that we are a very diverse county. At least 20% of residents identify as Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish-speaking people. So we are making sure that we are developing material that is not only bilingual, but also culturally appropriate to make sure that we're inclusive. Also, 6 of the restaurants we've been talking to, our outreach was completely in Spanish, 100% Spanish. So we know that having people reaching out in their own culture and language is a really important part of effective outreach. And that's all I have for now, because I'm sure we're gonna have lots of questions from all of you, and Eun-Soo, Eva, and Laura, we are prepared for
Yeah, great.
questions and the answers.
Yeah, there is, we will later in a little bit get to what phase 2 of this project is, but I want to pause to take a few questions for the 4 speakers. So if you want to raise your hand, or if you want to unmute yourself and just speak up, we can be informal about this.
Yes, I read a question in the chat about—
Sure, go for it.
That's really interesting, Doug. If you can go to my 2nd or 3rd slide.
Okay. Is this one?
There you go. Yes, somebody mentioned why Pacifica has those straws and utensils and not Foster City or Daly City. That's exactly because the city of Pacifica passed this ordinance in 2018. The city sent letters to businesses, but it was still really confusing. That's why we went out there and talked to managers and business owners to make sure that they were in compliance. So they're switching to paper straws instead of regular straws, compostable straws, or bioplastic straws. So it's interesting that somebody already visited that McDonald's and they noticed the difference. Yay.
So Alejandro, that's interesting because I guess it comes down to the will of the people and the citizens making a difference, because I could go back to my McDonald's in Foster City, but if I'm the lone voice, it makes it tough. And it sounds like at Pacifica, there was a whole cadre of people involved in bingo. That makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference. During events with the Pacific Beach Coalition, we collected hundreds of signatures. We brought those to City Council. Fortunately, our mayor is well educated on the issues of plastic. So we were lucky to have the leadership to pass this ordinance in our city.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thanks, Larry. Good to see you. Yeah, Claire.
Yeah, several different comments. Number one question to Sue Lim is that I noticed that the food policy, why were bioplastics not included, not allowable?
Hi, Claire. Thanks for that question. And that's a great question. And that's a question that I get asked frequently. We actually looked into it quite extensively. There are a lot of issues with compostable plastics. And one of them is a lot of them don't break down in the right amount of time once they are in a composting facility. And when they do not break down into actual usable compost, the facilities, they screen out the residuals and they send it to landfill. Another reason is compostable plastics, when they are not in the right setting, when they are not in an initial composting facility, when they are on our streets as litter, when they're in our waters, in our bay and in our oceans, they act just like plastic. Another reason is they look just like plastic. So it's really confusing for regular consumers to tell the difference between a regular traditional plastic made from petroleum versus a plant-based compostable plastic. And there's no standardization, so there's so much confusion. There's a lot of greenwashing out there too. Yeah. So what people end up doing is they look at the compostable plastic cup and they end up putting it into the blue bin. And that blue bin ends up being contaminated. Mm-hmm. So it causes a whole slew of issues. And so our county, we let's keep it simple. If it looks like plastic, let's ban it. If it looks like wood or something natural fiber-based, then, you know, that's usually okay.
Has anybody looked into what would seem a very simple solution is that basically you say, hey, if you're going to sell products here, each product has to say, hey, this, you know, you can compost it, you know, commercially, or you can put it in recycling, or this must go into landfill. And if every package had to say that, it would make it a lot easier for a lot of people to figure things out.
Oh, and Claire, I totally agree. And there is a huge discussion within the waste industry, because if you look on the bottom of cups and clamshells and plastic whatnot, you see the chasing
Right.
go with all the different numbers.
Right.
It's really confusing. People think that if there's a chasing arrow, then that means that item is automatically recyclable, which is not.
And it was started by the plastics industry, so it's going to be hecka hard to get rid of that. We'd have to come up with something else. But if they were just required to say, okay, this is what you can do with it or what you can't do with it. So
Exactly. And that's a fight that we're trying to fight right now.
And the other question was, why were paper plates included in that list? It was a photo and it showed paper plates. I've been putting them into the compost, but why were they there?
Are you talking about the slide with acceptable materials, with examples of acceptable?
No, it seemed to be the slide that said non-acceptable materials. It was showing a lot of mostly plastic stuff in it. It was one of the very first slides.
So the slide with an X with different items around the X, they are all plastic, and they are all traditional plastics or compostable plastics.
Right. Okay. Well, there's one that showed paper plates and paper cups, along with, or maybe they were compostable. I don't know. Anyway,
paper plates and cups are allowed.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so while we got you, there are 3 cities that passed the ordinance too, right? Did we mention that as well?
I put it in the chat, but
okay.
I will.
Shout out to Burlingame and our council member on the call, Ann Keegren, councilwoman. And then Atherton.
So Burlingame passed it, Atherton, as well as South San Francisco. And we have a few other cities that are bringing the ordinance to their city councils in the near future for consideration for adoption.
Is Redwood City one of those or not?
Not like within the next month or two, but I have been speaking with Redwood City. They are interested. It's just some of the cities have put a pause on their efforts around this because of COVID. But the silver lining is, despite what's going on with COVID, we still have cities that are stepping up and reactivating their efforts, which is really good to hear.
What really surprises me is COVID.
Claire, I want to give a couple other people a chance to ask questions. Or any questions for Ava or for Laura or any of our speakers?
I have a quick question. It's a little,
sure, Audrey?
Yeah, it's a little like policy oriented. My question is more, so somebody was saying in the chat, mentioning that research that was done about, reusables and their sort of like danger in the pandemic versus single-use plastic, and how, there's virtually no difference. So like, what is right now standing in the way of reusables becoming a viable option again, when we look at, business in the county and takeout, et cetera? Like, what's standing in the way, and how can that sort of be promoted or accelerated?
Who wants to take that?
I can. I've actually been on the phone with the county health department over the summer about this same exact topic. The concern right now is the contact transmission of COVID, because while I think it was Shell who put this in there, there is no increased risk from properly cleaned reusables. The reality is that a lot of people don't properly clean their stuff. People will be bringing in, even when we were out at the markets, people would bring in, soap containers that had soap dripping all over the sides, or people don't necessarily rewash all of their garbage bags or their grocery bags all the time. So that's really the concern that the health department is trying to mitigate by just stopping all of the bulk right now.
I should add that it's hard work to convert from current systems to reusables. There's an upfront cost to a business to do that, but there are solutions. There are both product and services companies that can help transition from the current to the future. And it's so there's a policy approach, there's also the market approach, and there's an education approach. And we'll share in phase 2 how we're bringing those together. I think this has been an almost impossible challenge to solve so far, and it's really because it's, as I said in the first slide, it's complex, it's costly, but it's a crisis. And so how do we collectively work together to have the result be more than the sum of the parts? And there's a lot of good parts out there, but I think in this case, the result can be hugely more than the sum of the parts. So I'm going to jump to the next.
Well,
Yes.
before we move on to the next question, and while I have everyone here, I want
Sure.
to encourage you, when you are going to a restaurant to eat, because we're slowly going to be opening, please, I encourage you to trust reusables. In fact, in the chat, we're going to add a link with a paper approved by over 100 scientists talking about how reusables are safe, even during COVID. So please, when you go to the restaurant, make sure that you say, for here, and please, reusable utensils, reusable containers, they're safe. So please use them. We need you to use them. Otherwise, we're not gonna get out of this one without making a bigger mess. So please, I encourage you to trust reusables, and we'll add the information in the chat so you can read about it. Thank you.
Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to get back to my PowerPoint, which, give me a second here. That, and then.
While you find that, I'd just like to highlight what Alejandra said and what Shell just put into the chat that says, or skip the utensils and bring your own if you're getting takeout. Doug, it kind of goes to what you said earlier of, it's really easy to take your own napkin with you. These little bamboo utensil sets now are pretty compact and easy to take.
Okay, unfortunately, got to go through the entire presentation. No, that can't be.
Also, if we're thinking about helping and supporting businesses, imagine saving those 10, 15 cents of the utensils. So think about it that way too. You're helping them and saving them money when you're using your own stuff.
Okay, give me a second here.
Also, there's differences between different types of reusables. There's the bring your own, which works for utensils and maybe bring your own napkin, but it doesn't work right now to bring your own cup into a cafe. But there are other types of reusables, like the to-go systems like Vessel and Muse that are third party, and those can be washed separately, and people can still participate in those programs. Also, the on-site dining. I went out to in Marin County and ate outdoors at a restaurant, and they used real reusable plates and everything. And because we were dining on site outside, they were able to still use that. So there's different categories and there's different rules for each category, which makes it more complicated right now. But it is still possible to do reusables in some situations. It's really more the bring your own cup and the bring your own shopping bags that have been complicated.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Peter's based in the East Bay, but he's a consultant to San Mateo County and was a consultant to us on this project and was instrumental in authoring and passing the Berkeley single-use plastic ban. So shout out to what the good work that's been done over in Berkeley that we want to, we're following and interested in all areas that we can borrow from other parts of the Bay Area or outside. So so phase 2. So this is exciting. And we've talked about the problem. We've talked about solutions. Not so much which ones we think are best for San Mateo County, but back in March, what we said we were going to do in at this point in the fall of 2020 was we're going to convene experts and organizations to study and prioritize high impact solutions. So we didn't take the pledge that we were going to implement solutions this fall, but over the course of the last 3 months, we've learned a lot, and we think that we can do more than just study the solutions in this next period. We think we could start to build a structure to guide and coordinate cross-county solutions. So we are, in addition to doing some more, the same group that did the study, in addition to following up and researching more solutions and prioritizing, we are looking at a framework to create for measurable outcomes. We thought this might launch more in the early parts of January 2021, but I think we're exploring getting it off the ground sooner, and that would be a funded entity with cross-sector participation, as you can see, government, nonprofit, business, and youth. And for the sake of just a placeholder, say it's a community alliance to reduce single-use plastics. So when we get this off the ground, we'll create a name and a mission statement, but it's a collective impact approach. It's, as you can see on the left, it's finding all the organizations with a common agenda, deciding on common measurable goals, reinforcing all the activities of the organizations out there. Not everyone has to change what they do, but be coordinated, may end up changing, but coordinated with others that are doing similar efforts, focus on the same goal, and then constant communication and backbone support. And that's where Thrive might play an instrumental role, is in the middle here, and in that communication and backbone support, as we're not experts in plastic, but we're good at bringing community members together. The three purposes, high-level pillars of this organization, should it get off the ground soon, would be aligning organizations and leaders with a common agenda. I repeat this over and over again, but these are the core tenets of successful community and social change. Coordinating activities in a centrally managed team, or a central team with metrics-driven approach. So who would we bring together? Who would we bring into this community alliance to reduce plastics? We already have the 30 members and 25 organizations have been a part of this so far. So they are the natural backbone for or set of organizations to start. We have a core team. If we have a team in the middle, we know who the likely folks who will step up and help organize this effort. But we have waste management and stormwater and beach and marine. What else could we add? We will bring into this alliance two more obvious groups, which we just talked about: the solutions. Why not get them on board with us? And points of distribution, restaurants, schools, businesses. We need to find champions who will show, both on the solution side and on the implementation of solutions, who will show how these work. And when we want to adopt policy, or when we want to go to the public with a marketing campaign, we'll be able to have some success under our belts. Also, we talked about, we internally, throughout phase one, is how do we get the public to participate? Parent teams and scouts and folks in various clubs around the county that are interested in this topic. So we are definitely looking at a model to bring public in, and then health and jobs. I talk a lot about this in various other forums, is green jobs and bringing meaningful jobs to our communities that are underemployed or don't have the income level that they need to sustain a good lifestyle here. There's plenty of work that we need to do in waste management, and we know in clean energy and transportation and water, but circular economy and waste is an excellent place to invest money that's maybe coming to us through recovery efforts to create green jobs. So it's really exciting to see that we could get all these people together. It's not easy to figure out what to do and how to coordinate this effort, but there are plenty of successful models out there and consultants who have driven success through collective impact. And so we're not reinventing the wheel. This is something that we know we can do. It's just a matter of if there's funding and leadership. And we absolutely believe if we get the right people involved and take this to various organizations to find funding and show them what we do, that this is going to save money, and therefore it's going to deserve the funding that it needs and the leadership that it could get. The core team would, like I said before, define goals, coordinate activities, and be the constant communication amongst all these groups. So the next steps, not too complicated here. We're launching potentially, if we need to get the final ideas together in order to push this off the ground, and when it goes now or this month or next month or a few months later, we're still to be determined. But recruit the core team and new organizations that I mentioned. We want a name and a mission statement, structures and roles, raise funds, build a leadership team, and hopefully launch in the fall of 2020. So I want to turn over to Petra, who was going to lead some more discussion about where do you fit in and how, and that's where I think there's room for everyone if they want to participate. If maybe I'll leave it if the agenda of your organization aligns with the agenda of our mission statement, and you believe you can contribute to a joint measurable goal, then I think there's a place for you. So Petra, I'm going to stop sharing. Do you want me to leave this up?
That's okay. First of all, I just want to say a huge thank you to Doug and to the so many people on this call who contributed to the report. It is beautiful. It's a masterwork, and it addresses a lot of the questions that came up in the chat. There's a lot of detail in there about where we got the 500 million number, and about how our landfills are filling up and what happens when it does fill up. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that now. I'd really like to kind of look towards the future, because the basic work has been done, right? Now we know what the problem is, we kind of know what solutions are. The question is, how do we get there? And how do you want to be involved? Because of course we have an ask, which is, what do you want to do to make this happen? How do you want to be a part of this collective effort? Doug's laid out a framework, but we can talk about other ways, if there are other ways that you want to be involved, or if you want to be involved as part of this framework, and if you have any questions about how to move forward. So I want to open it up a little bit. You can either put a question in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or just signal to me and I'll call on you. Claire, you're still on mute. Unmute yourself.
Hi, I have a lot of ideas, but one of the things is, how do we get people in the county to choose better choices of packaging? And I mean, I personally go online a lot whenever I find a great, product that doesn't have any packaging. A couple of them I really like are this thing, which is for hand soap. You just drop a tablet in, and that's actually a compostable package. And then my laundry detergent comes in these wonderful little sheets that you just drop in one at a time, and they come in a cardboard box, shows up on my doorstep once a month. I mean, I share that information. How do we share, simple things like that? I've been writing to manufacturers, but I'm like a lone voice. How do I expand that voice, or is that, a worthwhile process? I really like to go to places that are already doing organic products, because, okay, if you got an organic product, why aren't you doing, the responsible thing when it comes to packaging? And so sort of lay a guilt trip on them.
Great. I'd love for Eun-Soo to be able to talk about if the county is working on anything. The restaurant ordinance is great. That's one thing. Is there anything else around packaging or anything that either the county is working on or anybody else that you want to tell us about?
Packaging, right now we're focusing on rolling out the disposable food service ordinance. That in itself is going to be a huge undertaking. And although we would like to take on additional initiatives, we only have so many people on our staff. And taking on packaging is really challenging because you have to influence the manufacturers and the distributors. And a lot of them are outside the county jurisdiction and our geographic limits. So it's really hard to kind of set restrictions and regulate that. So luckily the state, on the other hand, is trying to go for a bigger legislation on a state level. And they have something on the ballot. I think it's going to be put on not this November, but in about 2 years, that address packaging. So ensuring that all packaging is either recyclable or compostable, and holding the manufacturers accountable for a lot of the packaging that is generated, as well as generating some revenue, putting a charge so that we could collect that money and put it towards more programs like that. So on a county level, it's hard to do addressing packaging, but on a bigger level, like at the state level, there is some movement going on.
I just want to jump in and show how we could drive change. I'll try with packaging, but that is a challenging one. But let's say there was a packaging solution out there that we identified. Claire, you knew someone who worked at one of those companies, and we brought them into our fold. Where we were previously buying that solution, we found a point of distribution who was willing to inventory those products. And then we had public participation, a group of, well, let's just say we have a website and we collect names and we start to get a lot of supporters outside of this inner circle of supporting organizations. We run campaigns. So I think the power of getting all of these groups together is that we can start leveraging the knowledge that we have and combine them into either pushing for policy or pushing a new solution to the market or trying to drive consumer behavior change through campaigns.
Yeah.
So does Peter or Alejandra or Shell, do one of you want to talk about the state legislation that's coming up for vote soon?
Sure, I can mention it. It's the AB 1080 SB 54. It's going up for vote on August 31st. And so we're asking everyone to contact their representatives and ask them to vote yes. It's super easy. It's just a phone call and you leave a message. But I think the link is in the calrecycles.org link.
I just put the link in the chat for everyone.
Yeah. So everybody please.
Right now. I said you can do it right now. It's in the chat.
Yes, everybody do that. And then the backup, of course, is the getting the signatures on for the 2022 ballot initiative. Because they did try and pass the SB 54 AB 1080 last year, and the plastics manufacturing lobby got in there and successfully got them to vote no. They used, of course, all their scare tactics and a lot of misinformation. So, we're fighting a lot of money in a big industry that doesn't want any of these things passed. But I was also just told that they did get enough signatures to put it on the ballot for 2022. So that's our backup.
So with this form on the web, do people recommend that we use the web form or call or both?
I think either works.
Okay, excellent.
Let's say both.
Yeah, do both.
Well, so one of the things we do a lot of advocacy, and one of the things that we know is that if there is a form letter, you only have to change 30% of it before it's considered a personal letter. So if you get a form letter, it's great to just put in a couple of sentences that are specifically for you, and then it'll be counted in a different kind of in a pile, in a more important pile.
That's great to know.
And phone calls are really effective too. I think they count every phone call counts as like 100 or more, emails or something like that.
Okay.
And the other thing that's interesting is people aren't, you think that people actually reach out to their legislators all the time, but they actually don't. So each time you do it really counts for a lot. So please do.
So
I'll try.
One that's on the California radar right now, but there is also a federal bill that's sitting in the House that was introduced back in February called the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. It shares a lot of the things that the California bill would do, but it takes it a little farther in that it tries to stop new facilities from creating plastics, and it would limit the amount or stop the amount of plastic waste that we can try to export. It really forces us to deal with our own problem in a lot of different ways. So write to your federal representatives as well.
I just put a link in the chat with information about it and how to find out who your representative is and how to get a hold of them. So
Excellent. We should follow up, Petra, and make sure we
will make sure to
get
send this out in our follow-up email, which we'll make sure to get out plenty of time before the August 31st vote.
No, August 31st, August, right?
Yeah, it's a few days.
Yeah, so I'll send out some personal emails. I know all of you guys. I know where to find you. But let's do this. Let's get 42 people. I think 42 of us are on here. Let's get 42 letters out there. I think we could do it. But I want to make sure you guys know what the bill is too. Does anyone have a short description, or should we ask that that people read a specific small article? I hesitate to ask people to take action if they don't know what they're doing. Or is there?
The letter says has the current language and analysis if you click on it.
Okay, great. But in a nutshell, Shell, do you have?
Yeah, so for the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act will require producers to reduce packaging, containers, food service products, and finance waste and recycling programs, create a nationwide beverage container refund program, bans certain single-use plastic products that are not recyclable, bans single-use plastic carryout bags, establish a minimum recycled content requirement for beverage containers, packaging, and food service projects, spur massive investment in U.S. domestic recycling and composting infrastructure, prohibit plastic waste from being shipped to developing countries, protect state and local governments that enact more stringent standards, place a temporary pause on new plastic facilities until EPA updates and creates important regulations on those facilities. Of course, it'll probably be watered down, and then whoever is elected in November will have a lot of influence over that. So vote blue.
Yeah, and there are local organizations track these bills and give analysis. So there's Surfrider and Seahugger have information about these on their websites, I believe.
Thrive has to be nonpartisan, but we can take positions on issues. So just wanted to put that out there. But we do want people to vote for sure. There were a lot of questions in the chat about Second Harvest because right now they're literally doing 3 times the business, if you want to call it that, as they usually do. And they are using a huge amount of disposables. They're using a huge amount of plastic. And they are well aware of that and don't want to do that. And they've actually, in the last couple of years, hired someone who works specifically on making their own internal operations more sustainable. So I know they're looking at it. I know they're trying. It's very hard between all of the regulations and the emergency and everything going on. But I was very heartened to know that they actually decided to make it a full-time position and to look internally what they are doing to see if they could do less. It's very hard on a big scale.
Call from Redwood City, CA.
I'm sorry, I work at Second Harvest. I don't know that that's actually true. You heard that there's a full-time position at Second Harvest focused on sustainability?
There was someone I talked to last year. Who said she was doing work in the
Sorry. I'm on the sustainability committee.
Oh, maybe it was a committee. Maybe I'm wrong.
You have a committee.
Why don't you update us, please? Much
Yeah,
better.
no, I really struggle with this. We struggle with this. We have a committee, but we were doing really very basic remedial work at Second Harvest, to be honest. There wasn't even recycling in our offices. There wasn't composting. We do compost the food. Well, we send to the pigs the food waste that we do at scale. But our offices, we're not dealing with compost at all. Even so if I'm completely honest, we have a long way to go. And the plastic bags have been a problem for me from the beginning, and it's only gotten worse in COVID times. The plastic bags and plastic gloves. People, we require plastic gloves, which makes sense. We have to be safe. I advocated for latex, but it was a no-go. So, no, we have a long way to go, honestly. And the plastic bags for chicken, for example, is a big concern of mine. And the chicken comes in a plastic bag, and then we're required to add an extra layer of plastic before it gets put in with the other food, so that there's not cross-contamination. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I wish it were true.
Yes. Okay. Well, if there's anything we can do to support you in your work, we would of course love to. You've got a whole bunch of people on this call who would like to, but you're just in a unique position too, with the things like the double bagging the plastic, the chicken. There are not a whole lot of options at this point. Hopefully, as we move forward, there will be more options of things like that could do the same job at a price that Second Harvest can afford. It's not plastic, but right now there really isn't anything. Yes, we need this magic seaweed plastic.
Olivia, the only advice that I have for you is maybe hang a sign to teach people that those plastic bags are always going to go to trash. The problem with thin plastic, with film, and with plastic bags is that people feel this is plastic, this is recyclable, and what we're doing is causing contamination in the recycling bin. So let's make sure that people are educated and they know that even if they look like plastic, even if they are plastic, even if they have the symbol for recyclability, they're always going to go to the trash.
Okay.
Along with 87% of all the single-use plastics that we consume in this county are going to the landfill.
That was one of the big takeaways, I think, from this project, was how ineffective recycling is.
Yeah, it's dead. You could talk to some of our leaders in waste management in this county, and depending on how frank they are that day, they will tell you it's a horribly broken system. And they're part of this project. Should we close up, Petra, and just can I make a closing statement?
Yes, absolutely.
Can I ask a quick last question?
Sure. Who was that?
I'm Donna Staten in Los Altos. I'll be really quick.
Hi, Donna.
What can we do with plastic film? And if you bring it to the Safeway bag, all your bags in one bag and all that film stuff, does it really go anywhere, or is it just landfill?
Your best chance is definitely to bring it back to Safeway. The problem with plastic is that if it's not going to the Safeway bin, it's probably not going to be recycled, especially if it's contaminated with any kind of food. When we're talking about the chicken, that is food contamination. So that should never, ever, ever go, not even in the Safeway bin. But yeah, that's your best chance. And I know people don't want us to use reusable bags in some grocery stores, but I encourage you to bring your reusable bag, use your car to walk your groceries to the car, and pack everything in the trunk so we can stop avoiding bags. Something else, another problem with greenwashing is that we're starting to see plastic bags that say reusable. to be honest, they're not really reusable. They're even worse because they're thicker plastic. So
Right.
the first goal for us would be to refuse the plastic bag in the beginning, even refuse the paper bag because they are resources that we're using as well, paper. But if you definitely have to use it, yes, please bring them back to Safeway. That's your best option.
Thanks, everyone. So I just want to close out saying that this, I was really excited about the possibilities of what we can do. This is the classic challenge to apply the collective impact approach to, is that we need everyone on board and in a very organized fashion. Where there's a lot of people out there who want to see this problem go away, but we can't do it without aligning ourselves. So what we're endeavoring to do over the next few months is identify all of the organizations that want to make this happen. We'll get in a room and define our mission statement, but also define quantitative measurable goals. And the idea is that we all, whatever organization we're in, we're executing our activities in a way that reinforces each other's activities and moves towards a goal, that there's no canceling out of anyone's actions, and that everyone, if they want to participate, and we're not going to say 100% of your work needs to be this or that, but that whatever your portion of participating is that we're aligned, and that if Thrive builds this and is in the middle, we pledge to be the backbone support of this and to have the constant communication and constant contact amongst all groups. It's not easy and it's not cheap. It requires leadership, but it's proven. And I am absolutely confident we can do this. It's a model for other areas too. And if we can do it in plastics, we can do it in other areas of circular economy. So we can drive this change. And it's just exciting to see the 30 people who are involved in the project, and the additional people that we met along the way, and those that we know we want to reach out to but haven't got to yet. Watch out for us, because we're gonna make a difference. And I know people on this call who are right there with all of us, and great people. So thank you for participating. Any final words, Petra? We have to reiterate what the next session that's coming up on September 24th.
The next session on September 24th, like I said, is going to be all about food. So we're going from things you eat food with to actual food, and talking with Impossible Foods and Plenty in the Aquaponics to talk about what this is an example, like Laura Porter is, of businesses being part of the solution. And so I think it's going to be a really exciting conversation to see what also is coming down the line, because there's a lot of more technology that's helping out to make the footprint of food production smaller. So,
thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Doug.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.